Happy Sunday, everybody. Welcome to NFL Conference Championship Sunday. Welcome to the morning after the night that was the Montreal Canadiens doing what the Montreal Canadiens have been doing for the better part of a couple of weeks now, and that is falling to a team and then mounting the comeback. This time to the New Jersey Devils, who rolled into the Bell Center. And as we explained to you yesterday on our live show, talking about how that 5-1 win over the Boston Bruins, where the New Jersey Devils had a 5-goal outburst, was more of an outlier than what was to come. But as it turned out, they dropped 4 on the Montreal Canadiens for the second consecutive time. The Montreal Canadiens' defensive structure not so tight, a little holy, and given up more than 40 shots against for the second consecutive game. Happy Sunday. Welcome to the live stream on the Sean Starr Show. You guessed it. I am Sean Starr. Good to be with you, and we'll be with you for the next hour or so, which features a nice little solid effort, and I'm pretty confident in the aftermath of what we saw against Detroit on Thursday wasn't going to resurface at home at the Bell Center against a New Jersey team that lost their starting goaltender in Jakub Markstrom in that 5-1 win over Boston. And that meant Jake Allen getting the second start in the last, 3 or 4 weeks, 24 days between starts for Jake Allen, former Montreal Canadian goaltender, valuable teammate. Just ask some of the former guys that were there watching Jake Allen as the Montreal Canadiens were trying to rebuild, and what that veteran presence certainly means to a guy like Cole Caulfield, to a guy like Caden Gooley and others. So we'll wait for the chat to populate just a little bit before we get into this here and get ready for the National Football League Conference Championship Sunday. As promised, I have my picks for you starting at 3 o'clock this afternoon with the Philadelphia Eagles hosting the Washington Commanders. That's at 3 o'clock. And then at 6:30, the AFC Championship game between the Buffalo Bills playing at the undefeated at home Kansas City Chiefs. So my take on that coming up as we move a little bit further along as the Montreal Canadiens have themselves yet another interesting week, right? Going through the New Jersey game was the start of a 3-game homestand. They've got Winnipeg and Minnesota coming up next before they head out to California, and that takes us to basically the Four Nations break, which begins on February 12th, and the Canadiens' last game is on the 9th. They don't get back at it until the 22nd. So this is it. I believe the Montreal Canadiens, after this week, playing New Jersey, Winnipeg, and Minnesota, the next 3, Anaheim, San Jose, and Los Angeles, let's call it. The difficult portion of the Montreal Canadiens schedule is now in their rear view, and to me, if there's anything that this team needs right now, what this team needs, in my opinion, the Montreal Canadiens need a little bit of a break, because it's nice to have a few days off. When you look at the Montreal Canadiens schedule, right, and see how it's kind of mapped out. Here, let me show it to you for a second, just so we can have a look at this together and move forward. So here's the Canadian schedule, right? And let's go back to a couple of weeks ago. When we look at this date here, I'll highlight it on the screen. January 11th, okay? And you see the next time they played was the 14th. So 3 days basically here, okay? Since that point, since the 14th, it's been 2 days game, 2 days game, 1 day game, 2 days game, 2 days game, 2 days game. And now finally, we're back to the last game on the 25th, the next game on the 28th. And then you can see again, it's 2 days. January is a 31-day month. Into February 2nd, February 4th, February 5th. The next 3 days off is February 5th to 8th as they go into the Four Nations break. So this Montreal Canadiens team, listen, full respect. Full respect to the Canadiens' effort last night. Full respect to Jakub Dobes really bearing down after that second goal went between the wickets, made it a 2-0 New Jersey lead. That was a soft goal from Jakub Dobes. He admitted it after the game, but I loved his battle back effort. And if not for Jakub Dobes, I don't know if the Montreal Canadiens, I'm pretty sure the Montreal Canadiens don't leave that Saturday night at the Bell Center with a point in their pocket. So gutsy effort across the board. Nice to see the Canadiens' top line playing like a top line. I mean, the leadership there was everything to me. Nick Suzuki, Cole Caulfield, Juraj Slafkovsky, like they willed themselves to a very strong performance. And we'll get into Nick Suzuki's point total this season. We'll talk about the amount of goals Cole Caulfield has. What is Cole Caulfield on pace for? But off the hop, I like Jakub Dobes' game. Now, listen, showed a little nerves, showed a little, the puck reading wasn't as good, I didn't think, yesterday as it was certainly in his first 4 or 5 games. But listen, he's a kid. He's played 6 games in his NHL career, and yesterday was the first loss of his NHL career, which takes me to my poll question I put up on the channel earlier this morning. We only have a minuscule 12 votes, so it's really no sample size to work from. But what's interesting is just 12 votes, and it's a 6-6 draw. Does Jakub Dobes start Tuesday versus the Winnipeg Jets? 12 votes, 6 people think he should, 6 people think he shouldn't. So head over to my page, hit the community portion, hit the post portion there, and cast your vote for Jakub Dobes, whether or not you think he gets the Tuesday game, because the Montreal Canadiens need a couple of days off. They really do. It's been one hell of a run considering the opposition right out of the Christmas break, right? Remember, you got the Florida, you got Tampa Bay, you got Vegas, you had Colorado, you had Dallas, back-to-back in a home and home in a short little window, and then Tampa Bay again, right? So the Montreal Canadiens have been in it for a while now, and it's nice to see that all of their hard work has been rewarded with them this deep into the season. I mean, we're talking about a Montreal Canadiens team at this point, right, that has played 49 games, and they're 2 points out of a playoff spot. So, yeah, Pat McAfee clap across the board for having a strong, character-filled season and a nice effort shown back at the Bell Center on Saturday night against New Jersey. That was feeling a little bit good. And New Jersey is a very good hockey team. They have a lot of star power there. And I understand that they didn't have Jacob Markstrom. And, Markstrom had been on an absolute heater. What was he, 8-1-1 in December with close to a .940 save percentage, had back-to-back shutouts and a like less than 140 goals against average, and then he gets run into in the first period in that 5-1 win over Boston, and he's out and will miss the Four Nations. He's out 4 to 6 weeks with an MCL sprain, and that meant Jake Allen got the start and goal for New Jersey. 2 starts in the last 24 days for Allen, and credit to him, money on the board game for the former Montreal Canadiens netminder, who looked pretty good. And what's crazy to me is the amount of time that has gone by between the Montreal Canadiens last beating a New Jersey Devils squad in regulation. Were you aware of this? That New Jersey has a 9-0 record against Montreal in Montreal. The last loss in regulation by the New Jersey Devils to a Montreal Canadiens team was in early December of 2016. So yeah, 9-0. It's clear to say at this point that New Jersey is very comfortable here, playing at the Bell Center, playing in front of the Montreal Canadiens faithful. So Montreal, again, slow to react. Better effort across the board than what we saw Thursday against New Jersey. And listen, Patrick Laine, I didn't think had his best game, but I will say this. The fact that his insertion onto the second line with Newhook and Kirby Dach has brought life to that second line, has brought life, I believe, to Kirby Dach's season. And again, with the law of expectations, what we thought this season was going to look like, how this season has looked through 49 games, the Montreal Canadiens, I do believe, have turned a little bit of a corner. And, the effort we saw in New Jersey, again, leads me down a very positive path to believe that while they're still young, while they still have immature tendencies to their overall game, I think we can talk about the schedule. I think we can talk about how hard they've played for how long they've played at that level, and that now we're starting to see signs of a team that if they don't get the timely stop, if they don't get balanced scoring through lines 1 through 4, the Montreal Canadiens are going to be struggling to find a way to win a game or take points. But I was really impressed with the effort against New Jersey last night, certainly by the top line, and Jakub Dobes' ability to bear down and fight, dealing with 44 shots and brilliant execution in that third period to make sure the Montreal Canadiens could leave that game with at least a point. We'll talk about how that game ended in overtime. And again, it's, Patrick Laine, not the most accurate passer. We saw that in the Detroit game where he didn't have a great pass to Lane Hutson. Hutson took a shot, went off a shin pad. Next thing you know, it's going the other way, and a shorthanded goal is scored against Sam Montembeault. And kind of a similar result. Patrick Laine, not the best pass to Mike Matheson. Mike Matheson, not the strongest on the puck. And as a direct result, it's a 2-0 going the other way. I'm not so sure Mike Matheson was situationally aware of his surroundings at that point, and it's a 2-0 goes the other way, and it's in the back of the net, and New Jersey wins in a 4-3 final in overtime. But most importantly, I'd love the effort and the bounce back from the Montreal Canadiens and finally have a 3-day break here between games. The last time that's happened was January 11th through 14th, so here we are now 12 days later talking about the Montreal Canadiens going through some really tough opposition in a tough and taxing schedule, a lot of traveling, crisscrossing back and forth, and now the Canadiens open up a 3-game homestand with a 4-3 loss to New Jersey, leaving them just 2 points out of a playoff spot. Ottawa picks up a big win over the Toronto Maple Leafs on Saturday night, leaving them 1 point out of the top wildcard spot because Tampa Bay and Columbus are both on 55 points. Boston has won back-to-back games now. They're on 56 points, giving them the third spot in the NHL's Atlantic Division, while you have all of this congestion here, basically, between Ottawa and Philadelphia. Right now, the New York Islanders, we're talking about an Islander team that is 6 points out of a playoff spot. So I'm going to draw the line at Philadelphia and say Philly, Detroit, New York, Montreal, and Ottawa all fighting for playoff spots, while Tampa Bay and Columbus taking the two wild cards in the NHL's Eastern Conference. Let's get into the chat on this Saturday morning as we say good morning to all of my favorite people here. Welcome, welcome, welcome on this Saturday to the Sean Starr Show on this Sunday morning, because I went through it. I went through it yesterday because I don't know what had happened. I woke up Saturday morning and was just in this sneezing fit, just in this constant sneezing fit. And I felt like I was coming down with the flu. My body was sore, my legs were sore, my mind wasn't right. And then I basically went through it all day yesterday. Felt like a zombie for most of the day, and then woke up this morning like bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, ready to go. So I mean, I can't relate to the fact that I've really experienced something like I experienced yesterday, but I'm certainly happy to be on the mend because I was a little bit worried. It's like, oh my gosh, am I going to have the energy? I'm going to obviously maybe miss some work, which I didn't want to do. There's a lot going on with the Montreal Canadiens with the NFL playoffs, so yeah, it's just nice to be back dealing with a little 24-hour flu bug. So we say good morning to everybody. Good morning, Adam. Good morning, Patricia. Boys look flat in the first half again. Dobes is the only reason they got a point. Good morning, Angela. Good morning, Zeph. Dobes looking a little bit more human. I don't disagree. He's looked a little bit more human, certainly in his last two starts. But I love the fact that he kicked his own ass a little bit there on Saturday night, not liking that 2-0 goal, that backhand that goes between the legs. And you saw the battler, you saw the gamer, as Juraj Slafkovsky referred to his teammate last week. Jakub Dobes is a gamer. 44 shots, 40 saves for Jakub Dobes. Good morning. Happy Sunday, Leo. Good morning. Juraj Slafkovsky says, Zeph, 4 points, 2 goals in his last 5 games. I'll tell you this before I move on from Zeph's comment. Juraj Slafkovsky, man, his ability to distribute the puck, his vision, whether he anticipates where a guy's going to find open ice or the no-look passes from Juraj Slafkovsky, very, very promising. Great start to the second half of Juraj Slafkovsky's season. Here he is again, another strong second half for Juraj Slafkovsky, and that is okay, no problem. So we say good morning, good morning, good morning. Couldn't count on those Leafs to beat the Ottawa Senators. I will say this, man, like Linus Ullmark is day-to-day, Anton Forsberg has come in for Ottawa and done the job. It's going to be, we talk about it here in Montreal, and I'm going to have some stuff with Marco D'Amico this week as Jeff Gorton letting people know that maybe the Canadiens are going to be buyers and not sellers. Maybe they're going to be looking to add. What are the Canadiens trying to add? Who do they look at as perhaps a good insertion to help improve the Canadiens' chances and fight for a playoff spot? So you have that to look forward to this week coming up right here on this channel as the Montreal Canadiens began a 3-game homestand against New Jersey. It continues this week with games against the Winnipeg Jets and the Minnesota Wild. Let's get back to your comments this morning. Montreal 2 points out of a playoff spot. As we say good morning to Steph Howard, member of the Sean Starr Show. Good morning, Steph. I like Newhook. However, we need someone better on that second line to complement Doc and Line A. Listen, I like Alex Newhook's game. I think his speed is a weapon. I think Newhook's speed is definitely an asset. That's why I really like the Nikolai Ehlers perhaps possibility. But then remember, Ivan Demidov should be here next season. So the Montreal Canadiens, I think the Canadiens are going to have a very busy summer. I really do. Whether it's transactions involving UFA players or just looking at the trade market and trying to perhaps get younger and perhaps get cheaper by moving some players on some contracts. I think it's going to be a very fascinating summer for Jeff Gorton and Ken Hughes running the Montreal ship. Okay, being last this morning before overtime was established, 3-on-3 should have been considered to the extra point was established for revenue purposes. My brain couldn't understand that. My apologies. As we say good morning to everybody. Leo, I'm right here. Good morning. Plume, good morning, good morning, good morning. Fox Sakes in the chat this morning. These slow starts are starting to burn us, though. Yes, they played hard. It was a great comeback, but how do we start faster? Interesting comment, no doubt. And the Montreal Canadiens have been playing catch-up, right? And I think if we look at the Canadiens' schedule, and we can look back to the start of January, where they won, what was it, 5 of 6 games, when they beat Colorado, they beat Vancouver, and they beat Washington, Utah, and Dallas, right? And then they lost to the Stars on Saturday night in a shootout. But the common denominator there, and I look at that January 4th kind of marker on the calendar, where the Canadiens played 4 consecutive games that went beyond regulation time. Colorado, Vancouver, Washington, Dallas, 2 shootouts, 2 OT games. And so, yes, it has been a grueling schedule, combined with the fact that they have played unbelievably tough elite level opposition. And I'm not making excuses. I think I'm giving you reasons to explain for those that are asking and wondering about, hey, why is my team slow out of the gate? I think the schedule from January is starting to catch up with them. And I'll go through it again. And I really do believe this is important when we talk about, the Canadian schedule. Okay, so here it is, right? So we start January 3rd, 1 day off. January 3rd to 4th, play the next game. 4th to the 6th. 6th to the 10th, that was a nice long break. A bookend week, Monday and a Friday. But then they go right back at it Saturday. They play at Washington, come home. When they got back to Montreal that Saturday morning at like 2:30 in the morning. They play that night, they lose in a shootout. Then they fly to Utah for Tuesday, go to Dallas, and then come back home to play Saturday. But again, 14th to the 16th. 16th to the 18th, 18th to the 19th. And then 2 days off, 2 days off, 2 days off. And now finally, for the first time in 2 weeks, the Montreal Canadiens have an extra day between games. So that, for me, is not an excuse. For me, that's a legitimate reason, in my opinion, that explains why the Montreal Canadiens look a little sluggish, why they look the way they looked Thursday in Detroit. And to me, it's admirable that they kick their own butts and say, we need to be better, we can be better. And I thought they were better, despite allowing 44 shots that hit Jakub Dobes, right? Montreal had 3 shots in the first 17 minutes of that hockey game against a goaltender in Jake Allen that has played twice in 24 days. So I don't think the Canadiens are a bad team. I think they are sluggish. I think they're a little tired. I think they have some heavy legs. And a lot of guys are playing a lot of big minutes. And as I mentioned to you yesterday on this live stream of mine, that, we found out that the top players on the Montreal Canadiens like playing the extra minutes because of the fact that they're short by a forward after Emil Heineman got hit by a car in Utah on Monday, January 13th. He's out 4 weeks. And they didn't call anybody up until the weekend before the Rangers game when they called up Owen Beck. He was here for 2 games, then sent back down. Raphael Harvey-Pinard gets called up. Jaden Struble on a conditioning stint with the Rocket. Right? So while the Canadiens have stayed relatively healthy, knock on wood, and it seemed like Gallagher and Anderson are dealing with something right now because they were game time decisions before puck drop against New Jersey, that Martin St. Louis and the executives running the Montreal Canadiens have to find out exactly where this team is at physically. And I like the fact that they called somebody up. You can't look tired, always trail recently, and then have double shifts for your top 6, top 9 forwards. That can't be. You're hurting yourself more than you're helping yourself. Let's get back to the chat on this Sunday morning. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for being with me. We got lots coming up this week. We're going to talk about the Montreal Canadiens week that features games against Winnipeg and Minnesota. We'll get into what Jeff Gorton wants to do as it relates to maybe adding some talent for the run. And we'll get into, obviously, Jakub Dobes and Sam Montembeault, our poll question that I put up before the start of the show today. We are now at 18 votes, with the yes side representing 56%. Does Jakub Dobes start Tuesday against Winnipeg? So far, 56% say yes over Sam Montembeault. Back to some of your comments this morning. Good morning, Plume. Good morning, Patricia. Good morning, Paul. Montreal cannot wait until Heineman gets back. They tried someone else on that fourth line to play some meaningful minutes, and that's why they brought up Raphael Harvey-Pinard. Joshua Roy is obviously hurt. And as we know, they tried Michael Pezzetta. I don't believe Michael Pezzetta is an MSL guy. I really don't believe that at all. I believe there's a lack of trust there, that the coaching staff can put a Pezzetta out there and trust that he's going to make the right moves and right decisions. And I think that's why his minutes have always been limited. And I think Owen Beck on the wing showed us that maybe he's just not where he needs to be just yet. So let him kind of marinate in Laval. Good morning, Morgan. What do you make of the news that perhaps Lane Hutson is tired? You know, this is something I spoke about 2 weeks ago. We spoke about this on this channel with Sean Campbell when we talked about, for a lot of NCAA guys, that 50 to 60 game marker is generally when we start to see players hit a wall. And, you know, Lane Hutson has clearly shown through 49-game season that this guy is capable of rolling with the punches, of evolving as a player, of giving opposition different looks. But it doesn't change the fact that Lane Hutson, as superhuman as he can look on the ice, at the end of the day is just like you and me. He gets tired, he gets vulnerable, maybe lacks a little bit of confidence, right? And then the day-to-day, because remember this, like, even though they're pros, even though these are the best players, these are the 1% of the 1%ers playing hockey, that they don't have a lot of time, and they have not had a lot of time to practice. I think that's why the power play hasn't looked as crisp as it did in the early blushes of the season. The Canadiens have been in a very, very tight, uber competitive playing window, and they have, I think, you know, tucked their chins to their chests and just plowed right through, ready to lift their heads up and say, where is the break? And I think the break is right around the corner. But they just need to dig in just a little bit longer, a little bit harder, so they can get to that Four Nations break on the 9th of February and then start really the push towards the playoffs when they get back to work on the 22nd of that month and really dig in. Because the Montreal Canadiens, if you look past February, you look into all of March, and then when the season ends in mid-April, there is a real opportunity here for the Montreal Canadiens to take advantage, because they have gone through it. They have gone through the hardest part of their season, okay? Now, we want this team to play meaningful games. I want to see this team react to pressure and how they perform when you go into a Saturday night game with the expectation of you can't lose. You cannot lose all 2 points on the board in this game, right? How do you react to that pressure? How do you react to that environment? I want to see there's part of me that wants to see the Canadiens do that more than make the playoffs, because I believe you can learn a lot about going into a game, getting your mind wired correctly to bear down and not have any mental breaks, because that's what's required in pressure situations. You cannot let up. Your brain cannot take a break. You got to bear down and focus 100% of the time for 100% of the game. And to me, that's pressure. And that's playing with pressure, and I really want that for this team this year. I'll be really disappointed if we're talking together here in March and this team is not playing games that matter. I'm going to be disappointed, because they've done all this incredible work. I believe they thrived through the toughest part of their schedule. And, you know, Andy Dufresne style, crawling through a river of shit and coming out clean on the other side, the Montreal Canadiens are coming out clean on the other side. And that's what I really want to see here. So don't let up. And that's why I don't believe Lane Hutson is tired. I believe the team is tired. I believe the team is mentally tired. They don't have days off. Again, January 11th through the 14th, that was the last time they had a 3-day break. And now they have a 3-day break. playing Saturday night. They don't play again until they host Winnipeg on Tuesday night. Okay, so I believe it's collective, not so much an individual. I mean, look, Mike Matheson. Look at Mike Matheson. Look at Patrick Laine, right? Patrick Laine, even though he has more pace to his game, I thought that pass to Lane Hudson put him out of position. Hudson takes a weak shot. It goes off shin pads, and a shorthanded goal is scored. Patrick Laine, not a great pass to Mike Matheson. Not a great, listen, it's a collective. It's not one or the other. It's a collective. Matheson, I don't think, had situational awareness. I don't think Mike Matheson had a great shot selection. I don't think Mike Matheson was hard enough on the puck there. But it began with a bad, not leading you pass from Patrick Laine. So that's what we're talking about. It's a collective more than an individual as far as I'm concerned. That's my read. Anyway. Thank you for the comment, Morgan. Good to see you. As we talk about the schedule this morning, Didier, comment ça va, mon ami Didier? Good to see Didier. I know Didier from, I see him online on the regular. He's a longtime TSN 690 supporter. Nice to see him live in the chat. Sean, I can't wait that you will be offered bacon and eggs. There's no bacon and eggs today. Don't forget to hit that like button for me, please. Just throw a little heart. Here, I'll do it myself. There, I just did it. Thank you so much for. Make sure you like this video so we can get the numbers up and keep moving forward. Espo says if they lose the next 2 games, it's over, pal. See ya at Ivan's inauguration. Ivan Demigod. Listen, let's not be pessimistic together, okay? The Canadiens have shown us for a pretty good size sample here that they have the character, they got the heart, and they have the hockey IQ to bear down. So I'm not thinking that they lose the next 2 games, it's over. No. I'm not of that opinion today. Nice to see Lior bounce back with some technical issues. Philip Saint Laurent, good morning. I sell Evans and Savard wherever they wish to go, then possibly re-sign them in the offseason. Aces Cafe, I have nothing to say about the rest. Me neither. I don't want to get fined. Jake Evans has had a rough time. Thank you, Morgan, for the comment. Angela Esposito, I'm so proud of this young team. They showed us how good they are. When they started to play in the second half of the game, they showed us how good Dobes got us a point. Jakub Dobes, I thought, again, I really do believe in the psychology of athletes and how sometimes it's easy to get intimidated when you don't have the reps and you haven't pounded it into your muscle memory. And Jakub Dobes is doing that, but his attitude to me is a winning attitude. Ridiculous schedule, says Patricia. And look, it's over. It's over. The Canadiens have gone through the hardest part of their season. Dave Laws, good morning, Dave. Great game last night. They should have won. I don't know if they should have won that hockey game. I mean, let's look at that, right? What was it? The Canadiens had, 3 shots on goal through the opening 17 minutes of that hockey game. It's back-to-back games where Montreal has allowed 40 shots or more, and the Canadiens blocked 32 shots. Lane Hudson, 6. Alex Carrier, what a nice snipe, by the way. Alex Carrier getting his first goal as a Canadian. Hudson and Carrier combined for 12 block shots yesterday. And full credit to the Canadiens for battling back in that hockey game from 2 goals down. Very, 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 very solid stuff. Steph Howard, good morning. Okay, Steph says he's ready to get buried here. I would give Primo a few games again due to the 6 games in a row, one with the Rocket. Now, I'm not so sure where that comes from. I mean, yes, full credit to Caden Primo, who is a true professional, went to Laval, and as Steph Howard points out here in the chat, has done very, very well. Good numbers, solid numbers. But, I mean, Jakub Dobes, to me, the battle back Sunday against the New York Rangers where the Canadiens had to, the Rangers had the lead 4 different times on that Sunday game, and he battles back. And listen, the kid showed some nerves yesterday. That second goal was weak sauce, no doubt. You're allowed to say that. It's the National Hockey League. It's not, midget A at the Ray Bork Arena with mom and dad watching from the stands, or maybe dad's coaching the team up here. No, this is a man's league. This is a serious league. This is a professional league. And Jakub Dobes looked not great in the early goings. But It's the growth that I saw in that singular game that says it's all good. It's all good. I am not of the opinion that Caden Primo needs to come back. No, let more work for Caden Primo. Dave Law says, after listening to Gordon, I think the Habs are looking for another piece. Yeah, that was Jeff Gordon on with Jimmy Murphy and Pierre Maguire on their podcast, talking about the possibility of Montreal adding. I'm going to expand on that this week. I'm going to have Marco D'Amico as my guest, and we're going to talk about not only are the Canadiens going to add, but what type of player, what type of character are the Montreal Canadiens looking at? And I'm very fascinated by that possibility because I like to see signs. I like to see work from a sample where, like, who are the Canadiens attracted to in terms of bringing someone in? It's not just anybody. Remember, the Canadiens are rebuilding. The Canadiens are not ready to contend. They're still rebuilding, despite all the good work that they've done, right? Despite all the good work they've done. This is still a rebuilding Montreal Canadiens team. So let's keep that in mind. Let's keep that in mind as we move forward after a game like Detroit, after a game like New Jersey. This is still a rebuilding team that has shown tremendous signs of life. So expectations, let's massage them, let's manage them. So I'm very curious. I'm very, very curious to see, based on where this team is rebuild-wise in this timeline, who they add, because we're going to read into that. Look at the Alex Carrier addition, right? Remember that they auditioned a bunch of guys in real time. They auditioned Jaden Struble. They auditioned Arbor Jacki. And they did the same with Justin Barron. And then once the audition portion of that season was over, they moved Justin Barron for Alex Carrier. And look at Alex Carrier, very quiet, reliable operator. Trustworthy, nothing fancy, nothing crazy, just very strong fundamental play who plays reliable minutes for Martin St. Louis. And that's what this team wants. So when I look at the Alex Carrier, they don't bring in a loud, boisterous guy. They bring in a pro's pro. So that's one idea. What is Jeff Gordon going to do next? Who could we possibly think they're looking at to bring in this season? And it's very, very delicate, because I am also of the opinion of letting these guys fight. But I will leave the door open for communication, because if Nick Suzuki, Cole Caulfield talk about how they love this group, it would be nice to get a little help. If your leaders come to bring that to the table, then obviously you listen to them. Right? Let's get back to your comments on this Sunday morning. Good morning. Let's see. Philip Saint Laurent, hockey players are not Pokemon. The psychology of the athlete has to be a priority. Player assistance is a good start. Probably needs to be explained. At this level, right? And I believe this. I believe this wholeheartedly. At this level, it's here that matters probably more than anything else. Like, think about it for a second. Like, these players play at the top level of the game. Top level, right? So what's the separation? I love, as most of you know, I'm a very passionate, borderline psychotic when it comes to golf. Okay, so a lot of my insight, I do a lot of reading around what makes players great. How the mind of an athlete works is fascinating to me, And you know what the common denominator is that separates the great ones from the average ones? Because in order to be a professional at sports, you have to be great, right? But what separates the average pro from the great pros? And you know what the common denominator that I found is? And you're not going to be blown away by my insight. It's very elementary. It's very obvious. It's at the tip of your nose. Hard work. That's what it is. You have to be willing to outwork the guy you're trying to catch. That's it. Think about Tiger Woods. And there are a bunch of others that never even sniffed the pros. And a lot of pro golfers trying to get their PGA Tour cards would basically treat their journey to getting a card like a 9 to 5. I mean it, a 9 to 5. No matter the weather, good or bad, it was every day. Every single day, 2 hours on the range, 2 hours putting, 2 hours chipping, 9 holes, back to the range for another 2 hours, back to the course for another 9 holes. Every single day. Are you willing to put that work in? And that is universal, by the way. Whether it's you work at Deloitte or whether you play hockey for the Montreal Canadiens. Are you willing to put the work in order to be great? And some athletes, they work their butts off their entire lives to get to the top of their profession. And once they get there and maybe they get the paycheck, it's over. You rear off the gas a little bit and you're in basically cruise control. And some athletes do that across the sports landscape. It's human nature, right? But when I watch this Montreal Canadiens team, you know what I see? I see a group that is committed to being great. I see a group that is committed to working hard. And games like Detroit are going to happen. Not everybody plays a brilliant 82-game campaign. There will be mental lapses. There will be physical lapses. It's going to happen. But when you and I are here reacting, it's about how do they bounce back from that? Like if they played Saturday against New Jersey in the same manner that they approached the Detroit game with, I would be saying something completely different today. I would be talking about red flags. I would be talking about, did you see how they were last on the puck? Did you see how they were outskated? Did you see how they were easily pushed off or didn't have an aggressive forecheck? These would be red flags you and I would all be identifying because we're pretty smart hockey people, right? We all watch the games and we've all been watching these games for a long time. So I didn't see that at all Saturday night. Despite the fact that Montreal was on 3 shots for the first 17 minutes. How about that bounce back? And maybe they get a timely stop. Maybe Jakub Dobes didn't look as nervous in the first period and was tight. Maybe the Canadiens take all the points on the table there. A couple of mistakes, mental mistakes. And mental mistakes, for me sometimes, are due to fatigue. And I think this is a tired team and they need days off and they've got days off. And remember, I'm going to repeat this again. They have not had the opportunity to practice a lot. And that's a problem. It's think about it in your own life. Maybe you got 2-3 kids at home, right? Like every day, get up, shower, wash the kids, feed the kids, put them in the car, daycare, to work, back home, do it, and then do it again and again and again and again and again with no break. Sometimes the routine can beat you down. And I believe there's some of that at play here. I spoke way too long without getting back to you. I apologize for that. But I was on a run there. I felt strong. Russell talking about how the team looks a little bit tired. And nice to see that this team is going to have a little 3 days off. They're back in action Tuesday against Winnipeg live on TSN 690. Montreal trying to find some more depth on the fourth line. Here's a puzzle. What would Crosby to Habs cost, assuming he wants to go to Montreal? Philippe Saint Laurent. So let's talk about this. Sidney Crosby is not coming to Montreal. Okay, he's got a full no move. He's not over the hill. He's not a has-been. He would still be the leading point getter on the Montreal Canadiens if you're here today. But know this about Sidney Crosby. Sidney Crosby wears number 87. This guy's salary cap is $8.7 million. Sidney Crosby has been eating the same bleeping sandwich before a hockey game for 100 years. Sidney Crosby has worn the same jockstrap since he was like a peewee player. What does that mean? It means he's not going anywhere. I would love Sidney Crosby to be on the Canadiens. But he's not coming to Montreal. It's not going to happen. It doesn't make sense. As much as I want it to happen, as much as I think he would be great for this team, the timing is just not there at all. Why would Crosby come to Montreal? Like, they're not 2 years. I don't believe the Canadiens are going to win the Stanley Cup this year. I don't believe they're going to win it next year. And Crosby, at this point of his career, either he's going to be a one-organization guy or he's going to try to chase another Stanley Cup. And I just don't see the timing being here at all. So I wouldn't give up anything for Sidney Crosby, to be honest. And you want Christian Dvorak for Sidney Crosby? Then, done. I'll do that move. Good morning, fuck's sakes. How good has Nick and Cole been this year? Nick is the definition of a reliable. What a great captain. I love Nick Suzuki. Nick Suzuki's on 50 points on 49 games. And we haven't seen that since the mid-1990s, where we're talking about a Montreal Canadian player on 50 points after 49 games. That has not happened since 95, 96. Cole Caulfield scored his 25th goal of the season. He's on pace for 42 goals. Cole Caulfield on pace for 42 goals. And other than the individual points and how the individuals performed, against New Jersey yesterday, the fact that the Montreal Canadiens, to me, have the real makings of a legitimate top line for the first time in I don't know how long, man, 30 years. I love the fact that the Montreal Canadiens are being more offensively minded. I love the fact that the Montreal Canadiens have, I think, a legitimate top line. A legitimate top line. As Joe the Snoop says, I think Heineman's injury has lost a little bit of spark. I mean, spark, I don't know. I think, you're onto something there, Joe. I think Martin St. Louis and his team love the rolling four lines, and I think the fact that they can't do that because of the Emil Heineman injury, I could get on board with that. I could get on board with some of that. Let's see. Down south. Good morning, down south. Limiting the shots on goal will go a long way, and preferably not having to come back from behind, which recently had been the norm. Their compete level, though, has been remarkable, and that's it too, right? Like, I think a lot of teams know the Canadiens' tendencies, and they know they're a fast team. They know Montreal is good in transition, so you got to get on them early because Montreal is still prone to some defensive lapses where they can get hemmed in. And I think teams, I don't want to say the book is a little bit out on the Canadiens, if you catch my drift. Good morning, Ace. This young team is basically insecure and sensitive to change, both good and poor. And listen, I think you're onto something there. Ace, I think we could talk about, some immature habits from the Montreal Canadiens that sometimes costs them with decisions on the ice, but that's fine. It's all about getting those reps in and making sure you can get that done. I wonder if Caden Primo might get traded soon. He's hot in Laval. He is definitely very, very hot. And if the Canadiens, obviously, with Sam Montembeault and Jakub Dobes, I think they have a professional in Connor Hughes in Laval with Caden Primo, knowing that Jacob Fowler is going to be with the organization next season. I think Morgan is onto something there. I genuinely believe Morgan is onto something. More back to your comments. Joe the Snoop, back in my perspective on Crosby up. Yes, the Canadiens do look exhausted. I see you, Lyndon. Good morning. Conservative lawyer in the chat this morning. Good morning. I hope Laine stays. If we are ever able to win a cup, we're going to need him as a Canadian forward. No doubt, man. And I like Patrick Laine's game. He looks happy to me. He looks happy to be a Canadian. I love that reaction on Saturday when they lost to Toronto, when he scored. Scored a power play goal. I forget, was that the 2-0 or the 3-0 goal, whatever. But he's there. He's like, come on, give it to me. And then, of course, the Leafs dropped 7 unanswered on the Montreal Canadiens after that. Philip feels right at home now that a conservative lawyer is in the chat. Good morning, everybody. Jacob Fowler does look amazing. His numbers, obviously, back-to-back years. It was hard to imagine if Fowler was able to have a better season than he did last year, but it looks like he's having the makings of following up last season with what he's doing right now. Philip Saint Laurent, good morning. Why did the Montreal Canadiens call up Raphael Harvey-Pinard, as we spoke about already, right? Like, the Canadiens tired group, they look at options. Joshua hurt. They look at how that Owen Beck didn't look comfortable. And then the fact that there's I believe there's any belief whatsoever in Michael Pezzetta, who played, 7 minutes yesterday. So expect to see a little bit more Raphael Harvey-Pinard here Tuesday against the Winnipeg Jets as Emil Heineman continues to recover. And giving more opportunities. And I think, Morgan brought up an interesting point when he talked about maybe Caden Primo as trade bait. There have been general managers sniffing around, players doing certain things at the AHL level with the Laval Rockets. So Ken Hughes has irons in the fire, my friends. Hi, guys. Hi, Sean. Good morning, Sparta. David James, good morning. Caden Primo is worth a 6th-round pick at most. He hasn't proved anything at the NHL level. He cleared waivers. We aren't getting anything for him, even though the magician Ken Hughes is dealing. But that's the thing, too. Like, I think a lot of general managers, obviously they make transactions based on the here and now, but they also make transactions and signings and extensions, right? Like, they gave Juraj Slafkovsky $60.8 million in guaranteed money not because of what he did in 40 games. They gave him that money based on what they project him to be in the future, where the salary cap is going to be. What's the percentage of the cap that they believe Slafkovsky is going to be responsible for? And they believe he's going to grow into that contract. So I don't think we can have the strong opinion that Caden Primo hasn't done anything at the NHL level. I don't disagree with that. What I'm saying is there are always general managers that will always believe that they are the team, they are the managers that can resurrect, that can bring what this player is missing, bring him back to life by bringing him in the fold. A lot of teams sign players, make transactions, make dealings for players, also based on potential, not so much in the what have you done for me lately realm. But that obviously does exist too, right? Do I think Ken Hughes took a stab at Mikko Rantanen? I don't. And it was interesting too, right? Because Colorado lost that game, their first game without Rantanen. And it seems as though, whether you believe it or not, I do, that Colorado was shocked. I think Rantanen was shocked too, because some of the reporting that came out of that transaction, Mikko Rantanen to Carolina, was how he was willing to negotiate, but Colorado has their own internal salary cap, and nobody makes more than Nathan MacKinnon. They were going to make him the highest paid winger, but they weren't going to surpass Nathan MacKinnon's salary structure. And so there were deals on the table, and they struck. They struck at the timing that they thought was best. I don't believe the Canadiens were in the Mikko Rantanen business. I really don't. Let's get back to your comments. Yeah, way too expensive, no doubt. No doubt. RHP to be in the next game instead of Pez, I do believe that. Good morning, David. Morgan, I don't understand Chicago's role in the Rantanen trade. I talked about this yesterday. I need someone else to explain it to me. And maybe, this week on TSN 690, Darren Dreger will be on with us on Wednesday morning at 8:30. Obviously, he'll shed some insight on that. But Chicago retained 50% of Rantanen's salary and got back their own third-round pick. I thought if they wanted to move Taylor Hall, I thought Taylor Hall by himself would have been worth a third-round pick in return. But I do believe Chicago did move up like 20 spots in the draft. So there's something there. Again, I'm just being honest with you. I'm not exactly sure. Why. The rumors around Mikko Rantanen's contract demands, looking at $14 million annual average. I wouldn't be upset if they could land a Dawson Mercer style player in a trade. Probably cost a ton though, says Brad Wright. Good morning, Brad. And that's the thing too. Like, I think the Canadiens, if based on what I understand, I think they would obviously be looking to add a Corey Perry style of player, someone that the young players can ask a lot of questions to, can look up to, can observe how that player prepares for a game. A player with pedigree, with a player with experience, a player maybe that has a Stanley Cup or at least has gone on a deep run in his career. That's the type of player I could see the Montreal Canadiens adding, personally. Back to your chat on this Sunday. I have not heard anything new on the Jake Evans extension yet. Aces Cafe, not so sure. As I find this to be a very fascinating time for the Canadiens regarding their competitive play and their unrestricted free agents, because I think I'd rather see the Canadiens stay with David Savard if they're still kind of, if we're here in a month from now, right, getting ready for the trade deadline, that it will be a week away or something like that, that David Savard means a lot to the Canadiens. And remember that, what was that against Detroit there, where he's all over the place. I do believe that his value is significant within the Montreal Canadiens room. And I'd rather, I think, see the Montreal Canadiens keep a David Savard than maybe get another late 5th-round pick, 6th-round pick in a transaction. Because I don't think David Savard's not Ben Sherrod, right? Like, it's not a 1st-round pick coming the other way. So the fact that Armia is playing well, the fact that, Evans is slowly coming back down to earth, and David Savard and the Canadiens being where they are in the standings, I think it's a very tricky bit of business. And again, I haven't heard anything on a Jake Evans extension, but guys like Pierre LeBrun and others have been pretty consistent in their reporting, talking about how they believe both sides, the team and the player, are going to have to make some sort of compromise to stay together. But I won't fault Jake Evans. He's a 28-year-old, soon to be UFA, and this is his chance. I believe this is his one shot at making serious bank and looking at serious term with guaranteed money. He's definitely earned that right as far as I'm concerned. Let's get back to some of your questions this morning. When we look at where the Montreal Canadiens are on this Sunday morning together, getting ready for NFL Conference Championship weekend, as the Montreal Canadiens today played their 49th game. And what does that mean as far as the standings are concerned? So 2 points out of Columbus and Tampa Bay with 55, with the BJs having played one more game than the Canadiens, and the Lightning playing one fewer game than the Montreal Canadiens have. Tampa on 48 games. How about Pittsburgh? Pittsburgh's played 51 games already. Thank you for all the likes in the chat this morning. Certainly do appreciate that. You want to keep it locked to this channel all week long. My guest this week will be Marco D'Amico as we expand on where the Montreal Canadiens are, still very much in the mix. What do they need to do here? Are we seeing any signs of red flags? And let me dip back into our poll question here today. Just a reminder, as I can dip back into the poll question today. 55% to 45% with 20 votes cast. Yes, Jakub Dobes should start Tuesday against the Winnipeg Jets. Hit me up in the comments. Let me know what you think in regards to whether or not Jakub Dobes or Sam Montembeault gets to start Tuesday against the Winnipeg Jets. Evans will sign 6 years at 3.85, front-loaded, no movement clause. Thank you, Mr. Niles. 6 years? I'm out. 6 years? I'm not in the business of Jake Evans for the next 6 years. 6 years of Jake Evans. No, I'm not part of that group, because where's Oliver Kapanen going to be? Oliver Kapanen made the Montreal Canadiens team out of camp and is playing well in Sweden. Michael Hayes is 2 years away probably. Owen Beck is a year away. So 6 years for Jake Evans. If that's the hill that Jake Evans camp wants to die on, then RIP. I am not in the 6 years Jake Evans business. I'm not giving Jake Evans $20 million over 6 years. It's not happening. I like the 4 years. I like 3 years in the perfect world, but 4 years would be as long as I would go personally today. Be careful with these. As good as Jake Evans is on the PK and shorthanded and all this other stuff, and everybody loved Jake Evans when he was shooting at 30%. Everybody loved Jake Evans, right, when he was shooting at 30%. But when it comes to Jake Evans now, falling still, what is he, fifth on team scoring, shooting at 21.6%? Everybody likes Jake Evans. Everybody respects Jake Evans. Jake Evans is not a 6-year commitment, in my opinion. I could be wrong. Maybe everybody feels a little bit. But I try not to. I don't want to fall in love with my bottom 6 players all the time, especially when they're 28 years old. Morgan believes he's the only one that wants Evans gone. No, there's some, and make room for the kids. That's the thing too. Like, I think the Montreal Canadiens' competitiveness this season, I think, should make us change our line of thinking. Make room for the kids. Like, the veterans on the Montreal Canadiens this season have taught. I think I should have taught you anyway, that they bring a lot of value, right? Not only just with what they do on the ice, what they bring in terms of experience. What they bring in experience as far as I'm concerned. So, Montreal isn't the last place team in hockey. If they were 31st in hockey, I could say, okay, let's see what these kids have to do. But no, Montreal's 2 points out of a playoff spot. I don't think it's as easy as saying just give it to the kids today. Vinny says, big red flags for me is their lack of consistency. They can't seem to play 60 minutes lately. Also, they're taking a lot of bad penalties. I think that's some great points, Vinny, to the table today. And listen, I've chosen to look at the schedule. I've chosen to look at the congestion and the quality of the opposition, in my opinion, to explain why the Canadiens haven't been capable of stringing together 60-minute efforts consistently on the board, the lack of practice time, the schedule, the travel, the opposition. To me, when I add all of those factors up, to me, it explains why the Canadiens have looked how they've looked. But let's tip our cap. Let's show some respect to a team that fought hard and, again, erased a 2-goal deficit twice to at least salvage a point despite giving up 44 shots. The Canadiens blocked how many shots yesterday? How many? They blocked 32 shots yesterday. 32 shots yesterday, with Hudson and Carrier combining for 12. So they did battle back, but I have chosen to look at the schedule and the opposition as a reason why the Canadiens have looked the way they have. And the other point of Vinny's comment there was the penalties. Yes, that I agree with. I have no answer to the calls the Canadiens, right? They're a top 5 most penalized team. They've been very consistent there. They take a lot of penalties, and not a lot of good, air quote, good penalties either, in my opinion. So some of the hypothetical contracts are coming in for Jake Evans' future contract with the Montreal Canadiens. What are y'all saying? 3 years is the magic number, says David, for Jake Evans. Fox Sake says he'd give Evans 5 years at just over $3 million a year. He's got 1 goal in his last 15 games. Exactly. Aces Cafe likes a 4x4, a 4x4 deal for Jake Evans. I could get on board. I could get on board with that. That Evans cap hit of 3.85 would be the internal cap for the bottom 6. Bringing up Raphael Harvey-Pinard, who was called up by the Canadiens with 14 goals in 34 games last year. Again, can't we? I mean, RHP, God bless the guy, but wasn't that more of an outlier? I mean, the guy's shooting percentage was off the charts. What to do on defense, asked Brad Wright. Matheson is on his offside again. Struble needs to play. Struble's conditioning in Laval. I think he gets 3 games to do that. Mayu's playing well in Laval. That's the thing, Logan Mailloux. The reason I believe this wholeheartedly, the reason Logan Mailloux isn't here is because his defense isn't NHL ready yet. Everything about him is NHL ready other than defense, which is a very important part of the job for a future defenseman at the NHL level. Do you actually like Gallagher's play over the last three weeks? Is he hurt or just running at a gasp? I thought Gallagher's game was a little bit better when he played his 800th career game in Detroit. I liked it a little bit better. But for me, I don't disagree. There's some plays that die on his stick, and there's not a lot of oomph behind that Gallagher shot. Steph Howard likes Christian Dvorak on the 4th line more than Evans at half the price. Russell likes my take, 4 years, perhaps 5 on term for Jake Evans. I don't think it gets more than 4. 4 would be as far as I would go. If the Evans camp is like, listen, 5, I'm like, okay, good luck. Thanks for everything. I wish you nothing but the best. But you got to make tough decisions, man. Loyalty is a losing proposition in professional sports. All day, every day, and twice on Sundays, okay? So as good as Jake Evans has been, drafted, developed, brought along by the Canadiens, performing well at the NHL level, this is year 3 of a rebuild with guys on the come up, and they have a lot of players that they got to see. Can they plug them in those holes, and can those holes be filled by the right players and do good things on a consistent basis? Lots of comments this morning. Thank you so much for all the comments today. Make sure you hit that like button for me, that little heart button there, and thank you for all your generosity over the course of these live streams, no doubt. Certainly appreciate it. Dan believes the defense on the Canadiens is a little weak, especially in size. Not playoff caliber, says Dan. Fox sakes, I love Galley, but he's got no hockey IQ. That's a bit harsh in my opinion. Galley cannot look around when he gets the puck. I think it's a little harsh in my opinion. I think Gallagher to me shows a lot of hockey IQ. Obviously, I mean, we don't need to talk about the guy's heart, but I don't disagree. I don't agree with that. That Gallagher shows no hockey IQ. I think Gallagher has played a lot of hard minutes, man, and those hard minutes I think have caught up to him. How about New Jersey 9-0? How about New Jersey 9-0 against the Montreal Canadiens? Jesus, how's something like that happen? Morgan informing us Reinbacher is back on skates. Yes, we saw that. Good to see David Reinbacher. 800 games of no hockey since and a 30-goal seasons. Okay, says Philip Saint Laurent. Yes, yes, we disagree with the accusation of the no hockey since. So the Montreal Canadiens get back to work. Their 3-game homestand began against New Jersey. Strong effort, solid effort. I love the comeback. I love the heart. I love the determination. 2 points out of a playoff spot. The Ottawa Senators, big win. Anton Forsberg backstops them to over the Toronto Maple Leafs. I want to take the Senators' schedule here for a and see what's coming up. Ottawa's playing today at 5. And then they're also on a 4-game homestand that started with a win over Toronto and Utah at home, Washington at home, Minnesota at home. Then they go on the road, Tampa Bay, back-to-back at Tampa Bay in Florida. Okay, so I like this. I like this for the Montreal Canadiens. Ottawa's got a little tough schedule, as I believe, again, the Montreal Canadiens went through the toughest portion of their schedule. Let me get back to the chat here one more time, and then we will take a look at the NFL Sunday schedule. Yeah, Steph Howard likes Brendan Gallagher as a coach once his career is over. You know, I've made that point too. I like Brendan Gallagher. I would love if Brendan Gallagher wanted to do this. I would love for him to be the next Paul Byron in the sense that here's a guy that stays in Montreal. Paul Byron, who's now a member of the Kanawaki Golf Club, joined there this past winter. Is working the front office. I think Brendan Gallagher would be so valuable, man, so valuable to the future players on the Montreal Canadiens if he were to take a front office role and stay within the organization and player development or some sort of capacity there. That's what I would love to see because Brendan Gallagher, to me, man, he is the poster boy of what's required. You know, heart, never give up, right attitude, says the right things, works hard all of the time. And so I think Brendan Gallagher would be a very, very relatable player if he were to be comfortable taking a front office role. Let's get into the National Football League. Let's get into the National Football League for Conference Championship Sunday. All the action gets underway starting at 3 o'clock this afternoon. Before I get to that, I want to remind y'all of what's coming up on the Sean Starr Show this week. I will have Miko on, and we will talk about all things Jeff Gorton and what he wants to add. We'll talk about the Canadiens' unrestricted free agent players, and then we'll set the week up with Montreal playing Winnipeg and Minnesota this week. So stay tuned for all of that right here on the Sean Starr Show on YouTube. So thank you for that. Make sure you throw a like to our live stream today just to get those numbers up, and we can just encourage more people to jump on this bandwagon because you guys are on this bandwagon, my friends, and thank you for that. Certainly always appreciated. So let's get into welcome to Conference Championship Sunday at 3 o'clock. It's the Washington Commanders at Philadelphia, where the Eagles are 6-point favorites. At 6:30 tonight, it's the Buffalo Bills and the Kansas City Chiefs, where the Chiefs are 8-0 at home, Buffalo 5-4 on the road, KC at home favored by just 2 points. So I love this part of the NFL season. I'm a big fan of a winner-take-all playoff game. I love the fact that you don't have a tomorrow if you don't bring your A game with you. And so when I look at this game, it's going to be fascinating to see how Washington strategizes themselves for this game, okay? Because know this about the Commanders. How bad are the Commanders at stopping the run? It's a valid question. They're playing Saquon Barkley and the Eagles today. Now, the Commanders surrendered 137.5 yards per game on the ground. That was the third worst number in the National Football League. Now, Washington is 2-0 in the playoffs this winter. So you would think, man, they're winning in the playoffs. They're at an NFC Championship game on Sunday playing on the road at Philadelphia. You would think their defense actually got a little bit better at stopping the run. But the answer is a flat-out no. No, no, no. In their 2 playoff wins, the Commanders have allowed 150 rushing yards against per game. And they won those games. Why? Because Jaden Daniels and the Commanders' offense were able to overcome bad defenses. Detroit and Tampa Bay both allowed more than 340 yards per game during the regular season, and Washington definitely took advantage of that. This week, though, welcome to the brick wall that is the Philadelphia Eagles. Their defense surrendered the fewest yards of any team in the entirety of this past regular season. So let's look back. When these teams met in Week 11, the Commanders tied their lowest scoring output of a season in a 26-18 loss. 8 of those points, 8 of those 18, came on a touchdown with under 30 seconds to play. And when they met a month later, Jalen Hurts played one quarter of that football game, and he got knocked out. And the Eagles still almost won that game. Jaden Daniels had to throw a touchdown pass with less than 10 seconds to go to win 36-33. So I just wanted to provide a little bit of context in how these teams played each other this year. And it's going to be interesting to see the fact that Saquon Barkley has been an absolute monster, impossible to stop, and Washington's run defense has actually gotten worse in the playoffs. And that's why I like this to be a high-scoring game. I think this game gets to 50 points. I think the Philadelphia Eagles win this game and they get back to a Super Bowl. Now, as far as the point spread is concerned, I'm a little less confident in Washington this week than I have been in the past two, because defense. Aaron Donald referred to Jalen Carter as his successor. You talk about getting pumped up for a game. I don't know if Washington's going to have the same magic. So I like this game to get to 50 points. That means it's an over 47.5. So if I were to make a betting ticket for this game, this is what I would do. If I were you, if I were to make a betting ticket for this game, this is what I would do. Okay, I would do a 6-point teaser in this football game. I would drop the Eagles down to even, and I would take the total at over under 41.5 points in a 2-team teaser. So 6-point teaser, Philadelphia and the over. So now Philadelphia just has to win this game, and we need this football game to get to 42 points. That would be the ticket I would play for the 3 o'clock game. On a single ticket, I would bet the over 47.5 points. Now, let's get to the AFC Championship game at 6:30. Of course, it's Buffalo at 15-4 against Kansas City at 16-2, a total here of 48.5 points, where the Chiefs at home are favored by just 2 points. And this is the game, if you're going to miss a game, miss the early game, make sure you're around the TV to get to this one. When we look back to Week 11, when Buffalo and Kansas City met up, and the Bills beat the Chiefs 30-21, and I'm thinking about how did that happen, right? The Bills have won 4 straight regular season games against Kansas City, and in 2 of those, and 2 this season, right? They ended up playing Kansas City again in the playoffs, and guess who won in the playoffs? It wasn't Buffalo. It's crazy. It's crazy to me, right? Like, you go through it over the last 4 seasons. In 2020, they met in the AFC title game. Chiefs win 38-24. 2021, they meet in the regular season. Buffalo wins 38-20. Then they meet in the 2021 postseason, the divisional round, Chiefs win in overtime. Then the next year, Bills beat Kansas City 24-20 in the regular season. They meet in the playoffs. The Bills 20-17 over Kansas City in the regular season, right? So it's back-to-back regular season wins. 2023 playoffs, the divisional round, Kansas City wins. 2024 regular season, Buffalo beats Kansas City. So if you're scoring at home, the Bills have gone 4-0 against KC in the regular season, but 0-3 in the playoffs. Like, it's crazy. It's crazy how, whether it's Kansas City buttoning up or Buffalo getting in their own heads, how a team can have regular season success and then have zero success in the playoffs is an absolute mystery to me. So, in other words, if this was a regular season game, you're reading my mind. I'm probably taking Buffalo. But that's not what's happening here today. And so when we look at the Bills at 15-4 on the season, including the playoffs, I'll remind you, how does it break down? 15-4 is an incredible record, especially when we break it down, because when you break it down, Buffalo's 15-4 record looks like this. They're 10-0 at home, but they're also 5-4 on the road. Now, let's break it down even further. The Bills played 4 road games against teams that eventually made the playoffs: Baltimore, Houston, Detroit, and the LA Rams. In those 4 games against those 4 playoff-bound teams this year, Buffalo went 1-3. Now, Josh Allen doesn't play as well on the road as he does at home. But let's also remember and talk about Buffalo's defense. That unit gave up 35 points or more in 3 games this season, All of them came on the road. The Bills only gave up 425 yards or more in 4 games this season, and you guessed it, they all came on the road. Are we picking up on a pattern? I hope so. So Buffalo, no doubt, had a great season. But can I sit here and tell you I trust them to win an important game on the road against a team that has 0 home losses this season? I can't do it. I can't do it. I got the Kansas City Chiefs winning and covering the number. That's where I am on the AFC Championship game. So just to recap at home, if you're following along, I'll start in the later game. I like Kansas City -2 to win, get back to another Super Bowl. And in the early game, I would do a 6-point teaser card. I would drop the Philadelphia Eagles back down to even and play over 41.5 points. If you just want to play a single ticket, I would look at the over 47.5, but I really like the 6-point teaser ticket. And that's a 2-team parlay, so both of those guys obviously have to hit. So that's where I'm at with my NFL picks on this Sunday. And enjoy the games. I hope you win. And I look forward to being with you for the rest of the upcoming week as we talk about the Montreal Canadiens. We talk about how the Montreal Canadiens are perhaps going to add before the March 7th trade deadline. So keep it locked to the Sean Starr Show on YouTube and enjoy what's coming up this week with my special guest, Marco D'Amico. So we have all of that to look forward to right here on the Sean Starr Show on YouTube. The Montreal Canadiens back in action Tuesday and Thursday this week. And we'll be with you for all of those games, riding along all week. So thanks for the comments. Thanks for your generosity as always.